They've graced thousands of Thanksgiving and Christmas tables. In my opinion, they outshine even the turkey. From the warm, soft centers spread thickly with butter to their glossy, shiny crusts, I'm talking about honey wheat rolls. Follow along today as we make these tasty rolls that deserve our attention all year long. Add 3 cups of whole wheat flour to a mixing bowl, followed by half a cup of bread flour. The addition of the bread flour really lightens it up and cuts down on the unpleasant density and bitterness wheat rolls can have. Add 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast and 2 teaspoons of salt before grabbing a whisk or spatula and mixing the dry ingredients together. Now pour half a cup of honey into 1 1/2 cups of room temperature water. Be sure to scrape out as much of the honey as possible into the water. You don't want to let any of that flavor escape. Using a whisk, combine the water and honey. Turn the mixer to low and slowly add the liquid ingredients into the dry ingredients. You want to take your time adding in the liquids. Give the stand mixer time to work the liquids into the flour, which will ensure all the dry flour is gone before turning up the speed on the mixer. It's not uncommon for dry flour to stick to the sides of the bowl or get trapped under the dough as it forms. When this happens, it's an easy fix. Once all the dry flour has been incorporated, turn the mixer off once more and push the dough down towards the middle of the bowl. This step isn't necessarily critical, but it gives the dough hook a better chance at grabbing the dough during the kneading process. Now on to kneading. Turn the mixer to medium and pay attention to the first few seconds of the knead. If the dough is too stiff, it will get pushed around the bowl instead of being grabbed by the dough hook. If this happens, all you need to do is add a little extra water. Turn the mixer back to low and add a few drops of water at a time until the dough loosens up a bit. Now that the dough is loosened up, turn the mixer back up to medium. Knead for 8 to 10 minutes or until the dough passes the window pane test. The window pane test is when the dough can be stretched thin enough to see light through it without tearing. After 8 minutes, the dough has passed this test, so now it's time for the first proof. Spray a glass bowl with cooking spray and transfer the dough into it. Flip the dough over to coat both sides with the cooking spray. Cover tightly with plastic wrap and let it proof at room temperature or a warm spot for 1 to 1.5 hours. When it's colder in my house, I like to set the bowl on top of my range and turn the oven on low. The residual heat helps proof the dough. It's been an hour and a half and our dough is puffed up and doubled in size. Next, prep a 9x13 pan by lining it with aluminum foil. Spray the foil in cooking spray and set to the side before moving on to today's math lesson. Take a scale, preferably one that can measure in grams, and cover with parchment paper to keep it clean. Tear or zero out the scale and gently deflate any large air pockets in the dough. Turn the dough out onto a clean surface and then transfer it onto the scale. Today our dough weighs 1,052 grams. This recipe yields 12 rolls, which means each roll should weigh approximately 88 grams. Place the dough back onto a clean surface and divide into quarters using a sharp knife or a bench knife. Take each quarter and divide it into thirds, which will leave you with 12 pieces of dough. I personally like to start with one of the larger pieces, weigh and cut away any excess until I reach my target weight. Weigh out each piece, adding or taking away as needed until you have 12 equal-sized pieces. Next, shape into balls. Grab the dough, pull the sides toward the middle, and pinch together, forming a seam. Roll the dough into a ball by dragging it in circles on the counter. Place the balls into the lined greased sheet pan, seam side down. I personally love this step as I find it to be satisfying and almost therapeutic. Don't worry if they're not all exactly the same size. After all, we are not experts or machines. After all the rolls have been shaped, loosely cover the pan in greased plastic and allow them to proof a second time at room temperature for 1 to 1.5 hours. After an hour and a half, the rolls have doubled in size. Next, mix the rolls with water and place into a 350-degree oven for 25 to 27 minutes. Rotate the pan 180 degrees halfway through the bake. While the rolls are baking, make some honey butter. Place 6 tablespoons of softened butter into a bowl and drizzle about 1 tablespoon of honey on top. Mix it all together until all the honey is incorporated into the butter. We want this butter to be smooth and soft so it will melt completely on top of the rolls. After 25 minutes, the rolls are done, and while they are still hot, brush on the honey butter. Once you're satisfied with your butter work, carefully transfer the rolls onto a cooling rack and allow it to cool for 10 minutes before serving. The rolls are now cool enough to handle, so let's see how we did. I have to say I'm really happy with how these turned out. I hope you saved some of that honey butter because it makes a perfect pairing for serving to guests. I sincerely appreciate everyone watching today, and as always, if you have any questions during your bake, feel free to reach out in the comment section for any tips, tricks, or advice. Until next time.